Well, the former Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf has told the BBC that trust between the West and Pakistan can be restored, but he said Pakistan's allies needed to stop trying to dictate how Islamabad should carry out its strategy of defeating the Taliban.
You have your own ways of dealing with the problem in Afghanistan. We have our own ways of dealing with problems in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, which influence Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So therefore, please, the tactics of handling situations, the difference comes in when you start dictating micromanagement and the tactical modalities of handling the issue. That is where differences come in. And that is where you feel that we are not very trustworthy. And we also feel you are not trustworthy. So therefore, I think we, as long as strategically we are together to fight terrorism, let us leave the modalities to us.
Pervez Musharraf talking to the BBC there a little earlier. Well, let's get reaction to the attack from Afghanistan. We can speak to Amrullah Saleh, who is a former chief of Afghanistan's National Intelligence Service. He's now the leader of the Afghanistan Green Trend Party. Mr. Saleh, thank you very much for joining us here on Impact. We've just heard from Pervez Musharraf there. Is the Pakistani military really doing enough to tackle these militants?
Thank you, Yalda. At this moment of pain and tragedy, I stand with the families, those who lost their loved ones in this most barbaric and inhuman attack. But I just heard the comments of former President Musharraf. Exactly because of these selectivity in defining terrorism and selectivity in defining the way how to handle it, Pakistan is in this situation. This state of denial is the primary cause why Pakistan gets hurt by the very snakes that this country has been harboring in its sleeve for a number of years. The same General Musharraf who just spoke to you, in 2007-8, he started to have a peace deal with the Pakistani Taliban and allowed them to have a space in his country. That time the deal was that, okay, you do not hit Pakistan, you only hit the Afghans, you hit the NATO forces, that is fine, and you will have the sanctuaries in Pakistan. Because of that double dealing, we are now facing this tragedy where children, innocent children, are getting killed.
But the Pakistani Taliban did say this was in response to military operations in the tribal areas by the Pakistani army.
Whatever the motive of the TTP, this is a very inhumane act to start with, but one has to look at it in the historical context. Who, first of all, created a space for such militants and extremist groups to operate from Pakistan? The Taliban as a thought, as a school of military action, as a proxy force, as tools for implementing foreign policy through means of violence, is the creation of the Pakistani military. Even if you speak to them today, they say Afghan Taliban do not merit military crackdown. It is only military has to be used against TTP only. That double dealing and double standard way of handling the situation is the primary reason why Pakistan is in pain today. But what the Afghans have been telling them over the years is that let us join hands, mobilize our resources, both human resources and material resources, to finish and uproot the Taliban as a quasi-political force and as a militant group, but they have been refusing.
But
now that unfortunately
Afghanistan does have the NATO forces, the force of the world in its country, and has done so for 13 years, yet it struggles to combat terrorism in its own country.
Exactly. The reason we are still have not been able to strategically finish off the Taliban because they enjoy sanctuaries deep into Pakistani cities. Remember, the Taliban leadership...
Pakistan now says the leadership has moved into Afghanistan.
Well, Yalda, you have to ask them a very simple question. The Taliban leaders who are now operating a so-called political office in Qatar. Where did they fly from? They flew from Islamabad to Qatar. When they are offering to facilitate talks between Afghan leadership and the Taliban, they specifically mean the Taliban that they have been harboring for so long. As you remember, after the visit of our president to Pakistan, days after he returned, Sartaj Aziz, the National Security Advisor of Pakistan, said, Taliban are our historical friends. The problem is some Pakistani politicians consider the Taliban a historical luggage, but the establishment treats the Taliban as a current asset. Between those two views, you do not know whether they are actually tired of this luggage or whether they are stick with the asset today. What we see on daily basis is the Taliban is still being considered a current asset of Pakistan for strategic purposes. So what we are offering now is let us join hands to finish the Taliban, not be selective.
Well, what needs to happen now? Because Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said that there should be no distinction between good and bad Taliban and that Afghanistan now needs to work with Pakistan.
Exactly. If those comments and those words are translated into action, then the army of Pakistan should arrest Haqqanis who are staying in Rawalpindi. They should take police action against the Quetta Shura. Quetta is a Pakistani city. They should ban the madrasas, the religious schools which teach militancy in Karachi. And they should disrupt the financial networks and support networks of the Taliban inside Pakistan. And they should come with solid ground for cooperation. They have come here to seek Afghanistan's assistance, which is good if Afghanistan can do anything. But it hurts us when thousands of Afghans are killed by by Taliban who are based in Pakistan. Our blood is not counted. And then when a tragedy happens in Pakistan, all of a sudden the blood counts and it matters. We are with families of the victims. We are with the people of Pakistan. But it has to have a logic. We have to be counted as a nation who has been suffering for so long and with such mass scale of pain. So what they are putting on the table politically doesn't make sense. They say, we push you to reconcile with those who kill you because they are our assets. And if we find or make some type of a story that Afghanistan is not cooperating with us, we push us to help you crack down our enemies. This type of proposal politically doesn't make sense.